The hunt for America's smartest serial killer.
My motive for doing what I am going to do is simply personal revenge. I do not expect to accomplish anything by it. Lincoln, Montana, 1996. This cabin is the chosen home of Theodore J. Kaczynski, more commonly known as the Unabomber. He's long been feared as America's smartest criminal, a serial bomber who's killed and wounded targets across the country with no clear connection. For 17 years, he's eluded the FBI. It's the largest, most expensive manhunt in the Bureau's history. He's the evil genius they simply can't catch, likely history's most intellectual serial killer. He's terrorized the nation, instilling fear in Americans about opening their mail and getting on planes.
Didn't he change rulings on, like, how certain postal services have to, like, handle packaging now? Like, they've tightened restrictions on what you can send and where. Not necessarily just because of him, but, I mean, he was somebody that was able to get around a lot of those, like, laws. He would just send people bombs in the mail.
And he did it all from his cabin. Here is where he built his bombs, where he wrote his manifesto, and where he evaded capture for nearly 2 decades. It's where he turned from off-the-grid recluse to world-famous murderer. This cabin...
And it's crazy that a lot of, not even just like Ted Kaczynski, but a lot of serial killers as well, get away. Even if they're caught, they end up like confessing to a bunch of different murders that aren't related to them. Ted Kaczynski's a little different because he's mailing people bombs, so they're all like clearly related by like method of, you know, murder. But in general, these serial killers, if they just stopped, would never be found. And there are many serial killers, not like thousands, but there's so many serial killers that have never been caught.
Cabin contains all the evidence the FBI will need to convict him. It's located deep in the Montana wilderness. Back in 1969, Ted moved here from California, where he left behind a shining career as a math professor at UC Berkeley. He wanted to get closer to nature and far, far away from everyone who pisses him off, which is most people. He built this cabin with his brother, back when Ted still talked to him. It's got no electricity, no plumbing, just a wood stove, a bed, and a whole lot of books. Right now, Ted is building another bomb. They're meticulously crafted, and he's continuously improving his technique. Every year, they become more lethal. In fact, he's got another one under his bed, wrapped and ready to go. But he won't get a chance to send it, because despite his intellect, he made some pretty dumb mistakes.
How many people did Ted Kaczynski kill? Everybody knows of the Unabomber because it's just like the story of a man that used to send bombs to people in the mail. I don't really know a lot of the specifics about him. Dude, the production quality of Fern's videos has only gotten better. Why are the fingers so fucking dirty? Alright, skip through the intro.
This video is largely based on these 2 books. Links are in the description. We attribute the social and psychological problems of modern society to the fact that that society requires people to live under conditions radically different from those under which the human race evolved. Born in 1942, Ted grows up in a pretty average family in the suburbs of Chicago. They're working-class Polish Americans. His parents are politically progressive, bookish and intellectual, and really into the outdoors. They're strict but loving. At least, that's how they remember it. It becomes obvious at a young age that Ted is exceptionally gifted, so his parents push him to succeed. He skips 2 grades and easily aces every class. He's a pretty normal kid for someone with an IQ of 168.
168? Doesn't that make him like a fucking genius?
Sure, Ted is quiet, shy around girls, and arrogant, but he has a core circle of friends and plenty of hobbies. Like his parents and brother, he loves playing music, reading, and camping. People like Ted. They'll later remember him as a sensitive, respectful kid. All that starts to change when Ted enrolls at Harvard University at just 16 years old. Like many college freshmen, Ted struggles to adjust. Here, he no longer feels like the smartest person in every room. And as a working-class kid thrown into the world of America's elite, he's a fish out of water. Other students and even faculty mock his shabby clothes and blue-collar background. He's deeply bothered by their snobbery, pain that will follow him through life.
Well, a lot of people that get into Ivy League schools come from families of very rich people and very successful people as well that put these implications on them that they need to succeed. And then that's why so many people that freak out when they fail to get in Ivy Leagues aren't even freaking out because they're upset they didn't get in. They're upset on how their family will perceive them because of their quote-unquote failure. I never understand it. I think the idea of Ivy Leagues is fucking stupid and the prestigiousness of them. If you're going to go to an Ivy League and you're smart enough to go to an Ivy League, yeah, fucking good on you. But if you're somebody with like a 1560 SAT score and a fucking 4.5 weighted 5.0 GPA, like there's no need for you to freak out because now you're just going to be able to get a free ride to any other university. You're still going to be massively successful in your fucking field. You're just not going to an Ivy League. It's honestly like a fucking class and how do I say this? It's a prestigious thing. It's like I don't want to say it's cultish, but it's like going to an Ivy League makes you feel like you're better than everybody that isn't at an Ivy League.
Ted's also just really young, younger than almost everyone else on campus. As an adult, Ted will write his mother furious letters about this. He demands apologies for pushing him out of the house before he was ready. Ted becomes depressed, and his grades suffer. His class...
Well, that's part of the problem socially is nobody's going to want to fucking hang out with him. He can't go to bars, right? Yeah, when you're a freshman, sophomore in college, you're not going to bars either. But the second you hit, like, 21, you only hang out with people that are, like, 21 and older. It's just me being real. Because the whole social... The second you turn 21, your social setting when you're free is bars. You're like when you're 19, yeah, when you're a freshman, sophomore, you go to frat parties and like he could still probably like attend those even if there are any at the fucking Ivy League he was at. Nobody's going to hang out with him in his area, in his general age range, in any of his classes because he can't do anything with them.
Classmates describe him as a total loner, moody, rude, and virtually mute. He's that guy on the dorm floor who only leaves his room to go to class, who ignores everyone else, who slams doors. There's a stench of rotting food wafting from his room.
I don't think that's bad either. It just sucks when you're a dorming student. If you're a dorming student and you don't have friends on campus, it's much more noticeably a problem in your mind than if you commute. If you just drive to class, go to class, and go home, nobody gives a shit. You're never going to be upset about it. But if you're dorming on campus, you go to class, and then you have to go back to your dorm, and you have no friends, it sucks because you're still on campus and there's nothing to do.
Ted doesn't know it yet, but his withdrawn and alienated demeanor has caught the eye of a psychology professor. Dr. Henry A. Murray is very famous with an on-campus research center named after him. He's basically a god in the social sciences. Murray is looking out for particular types of students, those who will make excellent guinea pigs for an experiment. His final, most elaborate experiment, the capstone of a long and illustrious career. It also happens to be a CIA-funded project designed to cause extreme distress and break down the subject's sense of self.
And he just gets his students to agree to do this? What? Wait. LSD?
Cause extreme distress and break down the subject's sense of self.
He would inject them with LSD?
Clearly, we are in a position to do a great deal of damage. And it does appear that the FBI is not going to catch us anytime soon. The FBI is a joke. It's the 1970s in San Francisco. The city is a hotbed of anti-government activity. There's outrage over the Vietnam War. Protest bombings are a regular occurrence. Explosions happen every week up through the mid-80s. The FBI dubs it the Belfast of North America. Radical far-left groups like the Weather Underground and the Symbionese Liberation Army.
Dude, there's like conspiracies. I'm not even saying I believe in these, but there's conspiracies people try to make that LSD was released by the government to try and like damage the anti-war movement in the United States by making it appear as a hippie movement rather than a genuine U.S. citizen movement to not go to war. And they wanted to make it seem like something that you shouldn't be a part of, and it's like drug addict, like loser, homeless, jobless liberals that just want to get high and think that everything's peace and love, rather than like, hey, war is kind of just a bad idea in general.
Claim credit for many of the bombings. So most of the cases are pretty straightforward in terms of understanding motive and perpetrator. But amidst all of this, the FBI's San Francisco bomb squad makes a shocking discovery. 12 mysterious, similarly built bombs can be linked to one elusive killer or group. They have next to nothing to go on. Just for whatever unknown reason, this string of explosives seems to target universities and airlines. Whoever is building these bombs is an expert crafter and careful to not leave any DNA behind. Not a hair, not a fiber. They're encased in beautiful handmade wooden boxes. There are no eyewitnesses to the bombings and no letters from organizations claiming credit. The victims appear to be scattershot of random people. The unknown perpetrator is referred to by the code Unabomb. For university...
Okay, I don't want to sound like a dumbass when I say this, but the show Dexter has really showed me how meticulous the crime department is in trying to solve murders. I understood that forensics broadly was able to understand a lot of things, but when I started watching Dexter, I really got like, wow, they're able to basically pinpoint a murderer not easily, but like off of any piece of information. If you don't Dexter's fiction, I know. And Dexter in real life, if that TV show were to exist, if you don't know Dexter somehow, it's basically the story of Miami, like Metro police officer, not even police officer. He works in like the blood department. He's the serial killer and he kills murderers. And he always gets away with it. And I feel like when you're watching the show, you would realize like season 1, this motherfucker would get caught in real life. But they still go through like the processes that like actual police departments use to try and figure out who killed somebody. And dude, you leave like, it could be like a fragment of a hair or like just any part of your DNA will link you to the crime. And the second they can recognize like you're a suspect, you're fucked.
An airline bomber. So far, his bombs have killed one person and injured 20 others across 5 different states. Unlucky recipients of the Unabomber's early packages include a campus security guard, a handful of graduate students and professors, a secretary, an airline executive, and passengers on a flight from Chicago to DC. Some are injured quite badly. The first death is in 1985, Hugh Scruton, a guy who owned a computer store in Sacramento and was about to get married. What does he have to do with anything at all?
Yeah, what the fuck does he have to do with the Unabomber?
Far away in his cabin, Ted reads about his death and chuckles to himself. He hears that the FBI offers a $25,000 reward for any information. He's flattered. The Unabomber is making waves. Not bad for the actions of one man in a 10 by 12 foot shack with no electricity, running water, or phone service. Pretty hard to imagine now. These days, connection isn't optional. It's how we get around, check in. Needs is not compatible. Back to Ted. Here in his cabin, he's got everything he needs. Snowshoes, maps, a homemade chair, a cot, a typewriter, and hundreds of books. Scraps from junkyards and jars of chemicals for making...
If he were to turn himself in, would he get the $25K? No.
...his bombs. Binders and binders full of notes. All kinds of disguises for delivering the bombs, like wigs and sunglasses, and shoes with fake soles. It's crammed to the gills, but meticulously
Shoes with fake soles? What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
organized. At this point, the FBI has 0 promising leads, and by the end of it all, they'll never act...
Genuinely, what is shoes with fake soles? The footprints his shoe... So he would get a shoe that would leave a different footprint than the shoe he was actually wearing. If I were to ever go, I'm gonna kill someone, I would never think of that as something that needs to be done. Like different shoe sizes, yeah. Oh my God, he's wearing like a size 14 Nike blazer with an Adidas bottom.
Actually find the perpetrator themselves. The bomber is always several steps ahead of them. They'll pursue thousands of dead ends, spend hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, and pour countless man-hours into this case. They have no idea why he's targeting the people that he is, but the bombs are so precise, so well crafted. There's gotta be a motive, right? In 1987,
Yeah, I really am now recognizing I know nothing about the Unabomber. Because I always thought the Unabomber targeted, like, politicians and very specific people that were higher up in the government, not just, like, random store owners.
there's finally a break in the case. The Unabomber plants a package outside a Salt Lake City computer store, and a lady spots him. He's wearing a gray hoodie, sunglasses, and sporting a mustache. The police create a sketch and post it all around the country. The bombings immediately stop, and for 5 years, nobody hears anything from the Unabomber. All kinds of people call him with tips, but the leads go nowhere. The case pretty much goes cold, but the FBI know that it's only a matter of time before he'll strike again.
Wow, so he laid low for 5 years, dude. What do you think he was doing in that time?
They're sure he's using the time to perfect his bombs. And they're right.
For 5 years? Holy shit, dude. That's half a decade. That's like 1,700 days. He's just sitting there, just like meticulously tweaking bombs that he's gonna send to people.
In his cabin, Ted is finessing his technique. The upcoming bombs will be a whole lot more lethal. But, as the world will soon find out, he is also busy writing. He doesn't just want his explosives to do the talking. He's crafting a manifesto, one that claims to explain what the mysterious string of bombings is all about. The Technophiles are taking us all on an utterly reckless ride into the unknown. Back at Harvard in 1958, the United States is experiencing huge shifts in culture. The button-up 50s are drawing to a close, and the nation becomes swept up in the space race, the civil rights movement, the sexual revolution, the environmental movement, the explosion of drug culture, and all the while, the Cold War is escalating. The American military is paranoid that communists have developed mind control drugs and brainwashing techniques, and they're eager to catch up, so they're covertly experimenting with ways to manipulate behavior. U.S.
And
intelligence
they were using acid as a means to do that? Oh my god, wait, that conspiracy that I said is sounding more and more realistic. Holy fuck.
officials are especially interested in developing a perfect truth drug for interrogating enemies, and they believe LSD might be it. But they're also testing a wide range of ways that psychological manipulation could bend the will of anyone to do whatever the U.S. military wants. They've even enlisted help from the Nazi scientists who experimented on Dachau inmates with hallucinogens and interrogation.
Oh, wait, the U.S. government enlisted a Nazi regime, like, officer to help conduct acid experiments on people?
Could bend the will of anyone to do whatever the U.S. military wants. They've even enlisted help from the Nazi scientists who experimented on Dachau inmates with hallucinogens and interrogation methods. The military illegally smuggles these war criminals over to get their advice on brainwashing.
What? I've never known that. I've never known that in the 23 years I've been on this fucking planet. The United States smuggled war criminals in? That is crazy. They hired Nazis into NASA. I know a lot of Nazis flee to Argentina, but I know a lot were involved with U.S. individuals, but I didn't know, like, I wouldn't say this is recent, but even, like, then, dude.
As part of Operation Paperclip. Over the course of at least 11 years, thousands of Americans are subjected to unethical psychological experiments that include sensory deprivation, hallucinogenic drugs dosed without consent, subliminal messaging, hypnosis, electroshock therapy, and even ice pick lobotomies.
Ice pick lobotomies. I was going to say I can't even imagine being put under an unknown amount of hallucinogenic drugs unwillingly. People have bad times on acid and mushrooms that want to take it. Now imagine being dosed with high levels of hallucinogens unknowingly and unwillingly. That is a recipe for you having a terrible time. Like, no one's going to go into that experience being happy. You're going to fucking think you're dying. Like, you're going to actually believe, like, demons are torturing you.
And that's just the stuff we know about. When the project becomes public knowledge in the 1970s, the CIA director orders most of the records to be destroyed. The program is codenamed MKUltra. Many of the test subjects are vulnerable populations, like prisoners and hospital inmates, but also students. Students are prime subjects for these experiments because of their frequent contact with professors who play a big part in MKUltra. Some of the professors know the role they play. Many don't. During the post-war period, the CIA becomes the largest employer of college professors, and the military is by far the biggest source of funding for psychological research. Professors acted as consultants and researchers for military-backed projects. They used their status to encourage their students to participate in experiments, often involving drugs like LSD. Afterwards, they reported back to the government. Harvard becomes heavily involved in Army-sponsored studies. One of the CIA's main men on campus is the superstar psych professor, Henry.
Dude, and the fucking students don't even know that. They think they're just fucking, like, getting a good offer from a professor they think likes them. In reality, the professor's just using them to report back to the fucking CIA.
Murray. Murray is well known for his studies of personality, and since the CIA's beginnings, his theories have influenced how they recruit new agents and how they interrogate suspects. When Murray and young Ted Kaczynski cross paths, Murray is at the end of his career, and he recruits Ted for his final, most elaborate experiments. They're meant to assess the effects of stress and harsh interrogation on gifted male students. Murray wants to know, what will it take to break an educated, intelligent man? The setup is simple.
I think less than somebody that's dumb. Do you think it's easier to crack someone that's smart or stupid? Smart. I think dumb people will follow orders better and not cave. Crack them? Yeah, like if you're trying to get info out of somebody, like through interrogation methods or something. I don't know. I mean, this is just me just fucking straight up guessing. I would assume, though, if, like, you were fucking strapped to, like, you know, somebody waterboarding you and you had an IQ of 160, you're more likely to fucking give up and just be like, I'll tell you the info, knowing that it's just, maybe not. Maybe they'll be like, it's not going to change anything. But, I mean, this is an experiment. We'll see. I got to shut up.
Because he's showing signs of depression. Ted's personal essay stands out as the most pessimistic of them all. It suggests that he was already vulnerable before the abusive tests began. He is also the youngest and the poorest in the group. The students are told this exercise is just to study different personalities. In truth, now the real experiment begins. The essays are handed to lawyers trained in manipulation, who are instructed to attack the values expressed in them. The students endure harsh interrogations in brightly lit rooms. They face calculated personal critiques designed to humiliate and erode their sense of self. All the while, electrodes monitor their stress responses. Later, they have to watch these stressful and humiliating moments on video, over and over again, for 3 years. As Murray himself describes it, the tests
For 3 years? Why?
were designed to be abusive. He's had a lifelong fascination with pain and stress and is known to have a sadistic streak.
Wow, and they don't even get paid for this. They're just doing this for their professor.
Plenty of participants will later report the experience to be deeply unpleasant, with lasting trauma. But Ted's responses are the most extreme in every category. Murray's team identifies him as the most traumatized of all. Yes, Ted Kaczynski got MKUltra'd. You can read all about it at CIA.gov. In consequence, many claim the CIA created the Unabomber, but that's an oversimplification. It's not so easy to prove how much effect the experiments had on Ted's turn.
It's an oversimplification, but the CIA definitely made it worse. You could assume Ted Kaczynski still would have done things that were bad, but not possibly lived in a cabin in the middle of the woods sending bombs to people every day.
To terrorism. None of the other students in the experiment are known to have become killers. Some psychologists believe the experiments were stressful enough to create anger problems in Ted, or even aggravate latent schizophrenia. But other psychologists evaluate him as undeniably sane. Ted himself dismissed the idea that the tests were anything resembling psychological torture. He was very invested in being seen as psychologically healthy until the bitter end. He's taken great pains to not be painted as damaged or crazy. He wanted his murders to be understood in the context of his beliefs, not his personal history. If people saw his actions as a result of trauma or madness, it would invalidate his ideas. Ideas that formed his last year at Harvard.
Oh, so he was writing about doing this type of shit, or even just like his manifesto ideas in the last year before he was even killing people?
He comes to believe that technology is slowly destroying humanity and eroding our freedom. He's horrified by widespread psychological suffering and how industrial technology has severely damaged the planet. He's certain that it'll only get worse the more technology develops. So anyone who helps advance technology in any way is the enemy. Scientists, engineers, business people, what Ted calls the technician class.
So he killed a guy that owns a computer store because he thinks he's fucking advancing technological processes within the United States.
Society enforces obedience with psychological controls. He daydreams about breaking away from society and living off the grid. Ted graduates Harvard and goes on to get his PhD in math at the University of Michigan. He's quickly establishing himself as a brilliant mathematician and is offered a tenure track position.
Bro, he looks just like my friend. That's so fucking weird.
He's quickly establishing himself as a brilliant mathematician and is offered a tenure track position at UC Berkeley as their youngest professor ever. His students don't like him very much, but he's publishing groundbreaking papers on boundary functions. But Ted resigns one day without warning. He tells his family that he's done with teaching math to future engineers who will advance the industrial technological system and continue destroying the planet. Ted buys a bit of land near Lincoln, Montana, and builds a cabin with his brother. He's ready to escape the advanced technology that surrounded him at UC Berkeley.
Do you think his brother knew?
He wants to live a simpler life, far away from everyone he's ever known. And then, he starts to build his first bomb. Through our bombings, we hope to promote social instability. In industrial society, propaganda.
Yeah, because, like, is this, he keeps doing these chapters where it's showing quotes that seem like it's from his manifesto. And he keeps saying, our bombings. Who the fuck is our? That's multiple people.
Anti-industrial ideas, and give encouragement to those who hate the industrial system. In 1993, the Unabomber strikes twice after a 6-year hiatus. Two prominent researchers, a computer scientist and a geneticist, receive packages the size of a VHS tape. The bombs detonate upon opening.
They were that small? A VHS tape is like about yay big. Maybe about yay thick. Like, even in that image, they're probably smaller than that.
And both professors are badly injured. Shortly after, the New York Times receives a typewritten letter.
How do you not die? You're opening a package right next to you that's fucking this thick and big, and you're badly injured.
Claims credit for the bombs and says the public should expect more to come. In 1994 and 1995, the Unabomber succeeds in killing 2 people with his mail bombs, an advertising executive and a forestry lobbyist. As feared, his explosives have become notably more sophisticated.
And that's the problem is, if it was so clear who he was killing or who he was attempting to kill, those people would probably get mail checkers or just stop opening their mail. But because it seems so sporadic to the general public, nobody's putting 2 and 2 together. Nobody's worried about their own mail.
Bombings are usually accompanied with demands for money or some kind of action. What made the Unabomber so difficult to understand and to find is that his bombs never came with any requirements.
Why did people keep opening the mail? That's why. Because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bombs across the entirety of the United States to people that seem entirely unconnected. No part of you, regardless of what position you're in, is going, yeah, this guy's going to bomb me. So you're not worried about your own mail.
Finally makes his demands known. He writes the New York Times again, announces that he will permanently desist from terrorist activities if they publish a 56-page manifesto. The request kicks off a fierce debate within the FBI and the newspaper, to publish or not to publish. The FBI has a clear policy to not negotiate with terrorists, but they also believe he'll honor his promise and stop killing people. After all, this is what the bombs were seemingly for, to force people to pay attention to his views. Plus, they still lack leads. If the public reads the manifesto, someone might be able to identify the Unabomber, so the manifesto is published. The FBI decides it should just be the Washington Post, though, because it has fewer readers and the newspaper's stands will be easier to surveil. So they think. Interest in the Unabomber.
They're going to watch newspaper stands to think that Ted Kaczynski is going to come pick up a newspaper.
Is huge. Newspaper sales hit a record high that day, with lines snaking around the block. Across the country, Americans are eager to finally read what the Unabomber has to say.
Oh yeah, I'd want to fucking read that shit. In the 90s, dude, some guys just sending a bunch of bombs throughout the United States. I'd be like, yeah, he just published a 50-page article on why he did it. I'd go, I'm going to go fucking buy that.
The manifesto opens with an iconic line. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. And though the manifesto is an argument that calls for dismantling industrial society, it's also, unwittingly, a self-portrait. Within its pages, the Unabomber has accidentally unmasked himself.
Oh my god, because the government actually already has info on Ted Kaczynski, because they did experiments with acid on him where he obviously shared all of his opinions that he did fucking 10 years prior. And they're gonna go, this is Ted Kaczynski. This is the fucking 16-year-old that we gave acid that fucking freaked out at Harvard.
David and Ted, though 7 years apart and very different, grew up close and loved each other very much. As adults, they had impassioned philosophical debates by mail and shared a lot of the same views. David also worried about technology's destructive effect on humanity. He'd also spent some time living off the grid in a self-made cabin. But David wasn't a killer. When the manifesto is published, he hasn't spoken to his brother in a long time.
Well, I think Ted Kaczynski's efforts were futile. They were meaningless. I think the point of view that Ted Kaczynski has on the world itself isn't necessarily bad. It's more so just, hey, you're never going to fucking solve that if that's what you think. Living off the grid and making your own life in nature and more peaceful is kind of the solution for you. You sending bombs to people in the mail isn't going to convince everybody that we need to halt technological advancements, dismantle modern society, and go back to our roots in living in cabins with fucking lanterns and no Wi-Fi.
Ted cut him out when David got married and refused to answer any of his letters. David's wife Linda, a philosophy professor, has a funny feeling about Ted, whom she never met. As the bombings stack up and some of the timings coincide with Ted's travels, Linda tells David, "You've got a screwy brother. Maybe he's the Unabomber."
Yeah, that's a rough thing to tell your fucking husband. Hey, I think your brother might be the Unabomber. You know how he keeps going on vacation and he talks about how the Industrial Revolution's bad, and then he publishes his manifesto, which is kind of the same thing. I mean, it probably made sense to his brother, though.
Unabomber. David doesn't want to hear it. Linda doesn't know Ted the way David does. He'd never kill anybody. As a kid, Ted used to cry at the thought of animals getting hurt. But when the manifesto is finally published, David avoids reading it. He doesn't want to admit the similarities.
Avoids reading it, that's definitely because he knows his fucking brother wrote it.
Like the Unabomber, Ted is an excellent carpenter, and that he had a lifelong fascination with explosives, and that some of the dates match up perfectly with Ted's travels.
What? Bro, how did the brother not immediately go, yeah, that's my brother?
David only reads it when Linda insists. His jaw literally drops from the first few lines. The killer, like Ted, also hates technology. As it continues, David recognizes idiosyncratic word choices and logical arguments.
Yeah, like his own fucking terms of speech. Oh my god.
There is no escaping the truth. Ted is the Unabomber. So after some moral qualms about betraying his brother, David alerts the FBI.
It's the right thing to do. It's obviously the right thing to do. I don't know. It's still just a shit situation. Knowing that your brother's doing that, it's still a shit situation to... Don't say L brother. It's the right thing to fucking do. But it's like, it's so shit having to turn in your brother. It's the wife.
They are bound to make me out to be a sickie, and to ascribe to me motives of a sordid or sick type. Many tame conformist types seem to have a powerful need to depict the enemy of society as sordid, repulsive, or sick. Lincoln, Montana, April 1996. With the tip from David, the feds are staking out Ted's cabin. The investigation is meant to be conducted quietly, but they're interviewing local townspeople, trying to collect more evidence on Ted. Right now, all they have is the linguistic similarities in the manifesto and old letters from Ted that David gave the FBI. Not exactly cold, hard proof. Enough for a search warrant, but not an arrest. Rumors start to spread around town that Ted Kaczynski, their very own angry hermit, is the Unabomber. The plan is to draw Ted out of his cabin and get inside before he can escape or destroy any evidence. But they don't know if he has it tricked out with explosives. Nobody would be surprised if he did.
Oh, like Ted, he was gonna blow up his own cabin? What, to kill himself or to get rid of evidence?
He has no idea he's under surveillance, so when someone knocks and says some land surveyors need to talk, he believes them and opens the door. He wasn't expecting visitors. These days, he's busy with a dirty job. He's in the middle of rasping aluminum blocks to make powder for more bombs. He's covered from head to toe in the dust. He's rail thin because the rabbit hunting was scarce this season. Ted's hair is wild.
He doesn't even buy food. He just fucking lives off the land entirely.
And his clothes are literally rotting off of his body. But what does he care? He's not trying to impress anyone, and he can clean up fast if he needs to blend into society. Too bad for Ted. He'll be photographed in this state, filthy, emaciated, and in severe need of a shave. The image will circulate around the globe and will not help Ted's desire to seem sane. When the feds swoop in, they find 40,000 pages of
Oh, like if he knew he was gonna get caught, he would have fucking made himself look more like normal.
journals and plans, most written in code. The code is more complex than anything the FBI had ever seen, more convoluted.
Wait, what was written in code?
When the feds swoop in, they find 40,000 pages of journals and plans, most written in code.
40,000 pages of journals written in code, like his own language? What the fuck would that possibly say? And why is he keeping that to himself?
Code. The code is more complex than anything the FBI had ever seen, more convoluted than codes the KGB used during the Cold War. But Ted also left the key to the code in the cabin. Without it, the FBI wouldn't be able to decipher the decades of written confessions that definitively tied Ted to the bombings. They also find a bomb under the bed, ready to be mailed to an aerospace company in Dallas. Now the FBI has all the evidence they need. They lock up the cabin and take Ted to prison. He does not dispute that the journals with the confessions are his. In fact, he wrote them partially so that nobody would try to say he was crazy. Ted's family and his defense team attempt to convince the jury and the world at large that he is mentally ill. They're doing anything they can to avoid the death penalty, which frustrates him. He tries to fire his lawyers and defend himself. He would rather die than allow his lawyers to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. Ted pleads guilty to his crimes and is sentenced to life in prison. Behind bars, he never stops writing. He publishes 2 books and keeps up a lively correspondence with a wide array of journalists and admirers.
What did he look like with that not in that photo? I think that's what he would have rather had his mugshot look like.
He also finally makes some human connections. He strikes up a friendship with Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber who killed 168 people in 1995. Ted and McVeigh are briefly on the same prison block and find they have a lot of views in common before McVeigh is carted off to death row. Ted even finds love for the first time.
That's a very weird to be in prison as the Unabomber and meet another bomber and like bond before one of you gets sent to fucking death row.
The Oklahoma City bomber who killed 168 people in 1995. Ted and McVeigh are briefly on the same prison block and find they have a lot of views in common before McVeigh is carted off to death row. Ted even finds love for the first time in his life. After a lifetime of struggling to connect with women and never going beyond a few kisses, Ted suddenly has dozens of women writing him romantic or salacious letters. But only one captures his heart. A school teacher.
I never understand that shit. And that's with every serial killer ever. Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, Ted Kaczynski. They always have, like, just random-ass women obsessed with them.
Teacher he calls his lady love. They spend thousands of hours talking by mail or in visiting booths, but they are never able to touch. He writes classical music for her before she dies of lung cancer. Later, Ted also develops cancer. When the condition becomes advanced, he dies by suicide in June 2023 at 81 years old.
That motherfucker died 2 years ago? I thought Ted Kaczynski died, like, see, this is me having no idea anything about Ted Kaczynski. I thought Ted Kaczynski died, like, if you asked me before he said that, I probably would have been like, I don't know, maybe 2006. I would have thought that they either executed him or he got murdered or something. He died when he was 88, or did they say 82?
A political revolution. Its object will be to overthrow not governments, but the economic and technological basis of the present society. In the decades since his arrest, Ted Kaczynski continues to fascinate and sometimes inspire. The manifesto's central argument is that technological advancements since the Industrial Revolution have robbed people of their freedom and well-being. These advancements are supposedly responsible for widespread psychological suffering and environmental devastation. It's a revolutionary call to dismantle industrial society altogether and warns that technology will inevitably overpower human autonomy. Many of Kaczynski's observations in the manifesto are true. Some of his predictions are prescient, and a lot of the grievances are understandable. It's not hard to find people who are also frustrated with surveillance or
Yeah, it's not bad that he's saying technology has negative effects. It's more so his solution to that problem was terrible. I will say though, that would ruin the purpose of human society in general. I think it would make the world more peaceful if we stopped technological advancement and kind of reverted back to, living like cabin life. But the issue with that would just be a lot of humanity in general. Not that our universal purpose is for this, but a lot of humanity's purpose in general through society is just technological and, societal advancement. Getting things that make life easier and better and more enjoyable is the purpose that not humans in general have, but society as a whole has. And to say that we just get rid of that would reduce everybody down to living the same life for thousands of years. Like people 1,000 years from now would live an identical life to you, which would be, I don't want to say bad, but then we're not learning anything. And humans are obviously curious creatures, and that would just halt the capacity for us to flourish our curiosity.
or sad about environmental destruction. At the time of his capture, Time magazine wrote, "There's a little bit of the Unabomber in most of us." Nowadays, Ted Kaczynski continues to find admirers online, from teens on TikTok, depressed about climate change, half-ironically saluting Uncle Ted, to the extreme right mass murderer, Anders Breivik, who heavily quoted Kaczynski's Industrial Society in his own manifesto. But even if most people can find parts in the manifesto they agree with, most people are not willing to kill. Kaczynski...
Yeah, I don't think the manifesto's points in general are related to the idea of killing people to achieve those goals.
Knew that most people would be repelled by his crimes, but committed them anyway. Those who find the ideas compelling might want to check out Jacques Ellul, the thinker whose ideas most inspired the manifesto. The philosopher never advocated killing. They also should check out Ted Kaczynski's diaries. They lay bare the personal motivations that drove the Unabomber, beyond the manifesto that was polished for public consumption. Technological society really did seem to anger Ted, but Ted was also very, very angry, in general. In his diary, Ted Kaczynski writes that he was happy to kill innocent civilians. He took pleasure in causing people pain. He killed at least 9 dogs just because they barked too loud. He hated...
Yeah. And Andy's lost me entirely there. Now that changed from utilitarian serial killing to killing for pleasure and hatred for just living things.
He hated leftists. He hated doctors. He hated women. He fantasized about killing them just for rejecting him. He fantasized about killing his neighbors just because they annoyed him, including a toddler. He condemned technology as slavery and glorified simpler times that ran on actual slavery. Kaczynski wasn't even much of an environmentalist.
He wanted to revert back to that? I thought he was saying that technology in general was the reason for humanity's downfall and we need to go back to like a more like peaceful modern society viewpoint of like cabin and nature living, not revert back to slave times.
He made fun of them in his diaries. He littered proudly. He poached illegally. He logged unprotected lands. You might get the sense that he only used environmentalism as a post hoc justification for his murders. A cynic who identified ecological concerns as the most acceptable excuse for killing.
Wow. That was a fucking great video. Okay, more on the Unabomber.